I've spent the last 4 years of my life being the invisible girl. The one everyone called the glitch or the ghost in the back of the lecture hall. But everything changed the moment I walked onto that stage and watched the jaws of my entire engineering department hit the floor. My own boyfriend, the man who had been subtly fixing my appearance and telling me I should try harder to be more like the popular girls, didn't even recognize me until the crown was placed on my head and my real name was announced to the entire city. Was I wrong for keeping my entire life a secret from the person I was supposed to trust most? Or did he deserve to be blindsided for never seeing me for who I actually was? I really need you guys to tell me if I was the villain for playing this game of double identities, because by the end of this, I wasn't just a geeky girl in oversized hoodies anymore. I was the person who dismantled his entire ego in front of a live audience. To understand how I got there, you have to understand the two worlds I've been living in since I was 18. In my hometown, I was Elara Vance, the girl who won local pageants and eventually worked her way up to the state circuit. It started as a way to get scholarship money for college because, despite what people think about beauty queens, I actually wanted to be an aerospace engineer. But the pageant world is exhausting. It's all about the spray tans, the taped-up dresses, the constant smiling, and the hyperfixation on every single pore on your face. When I moved 3 states away to go to a top-tier tech university, I decided I wanted a break. I wanted to see if I could make it in a male-dominated field without being the pageant girl. I wanted to be respected for my brain, not my waistline. So I created a second version of myself. I wore baggy flannels, thick-rimmed blue-light glasses that I didn't technically need, and I kept my hair in a messy, functional bun every single day. I was Ellie, the quiet lab assistant who could rewrite 100 lines of broken code in her sleep, but wouldn't be caught dead in a pair of heels. For 3 years it worked perfectly. I had a small circle of friends who liked me for my obsession with vintage robotics and my ability to survive on black coffee during finals week. Then in my junior year I met Marcus. Marcus was everything I thought I wanted. He was a brilliant senior, a mechanical engineering lead, and he seemed to actually appreciate my intellect. We bonded over a shared project on drone stabilization, and within a few months, we were dating. But as the relationship progressed, I started to notice a pattern. Marcus was ambitious, but he was also incredibly conscious of his image. He started making helpful suggestions about my appearance. It began with comments like, "You know, Ellie, you have such a pretty face. It's a shame you hide it under those hoodies. Or maybe we could go shopping this weekend. I saw this dress that would look great on you for the department gala." At first, I thought it was sweet, like he wanted me to feel confident. But then it turned into something more condescending. He started comparing me to the girlfriends of his frat brothers. Girls who spent hours on their makeup and wore trendy outfits. He'd say things like, "Look at how Sarah dresses. She really knows how to represent her boyfriend in public." I'm not saying you have to be like her, but a little effort goes a long way. I felt like I was being treated as a fixer-upper project. I never told him about my life back home, or the fact that I had a closet full of designer gowns and a shelf of trophies. I wanted to see if he would ever truly love Ellie. The psychological toll of his comments started to weigh on me more than the engineering exams did. I remember one specific night when we were supposed to go to a small birthday gathering for one of his friends. I had spent 12 hours in the lab, my eyes were bloodshot from staring at schematics, and I was wearing my favorite oversized gray hoodie that had a small oil stain on the sleeve. Marcus walked into my apartment, looked at me, and actually sighed. He didn't ask how my presentation went or if I was tired. Instead he said, "Are you really wearing that? Ellie, it's a public place. I want people to know I'm dating a girl, not a junior mechanic." That comment stung more than I cared to admit. I began to realize that Marcus viewed me as a reflection of his own status. He wanted a trophy, but since I wasn't providing the gold shine he wanted, he was trying to polish me into something I wasn't. The breaking point came when the Miss State pageant announced they were holding the regional qualifiers in our university's city for the first time. This was the big one. The winner would get a $50,000 grand prize and a shot at the national title. I hadn't competed in 2 years, but my old coach called me and told me that the scholarship money would cover my entire master's program. I knew I had to do it. But I also knew that if I told Marcus, he wouldn't understand. Or worse, he'd suddenly be proud of me for the wrong reasons. So, I started living a double life. I told Marcus I was taking an extra night shift at the lab, but instead, I was at a local gym practicing my walk in 6-inch stilettos. I told him I was staying late to study at the library, but I was actually at fittings, getting my measurements taken for a custom evening gown. The stress was eating me alive. One night, Marcus actually found a stray sequin in my car. He picked it up with this look of pure confusion and asked, "What is this? Are you going to some rave without me?" I just laughed it off and told him it must have been from a craft project one of my lab partners was working on. He believed me because, in his mind, I was too plain to ever have a reason to wear sequins. Every day was a battle of logistics. I had to hide my Pageant heels in the trunk of my car under a pile of spare tires and jumper cables. I had to make sure I scrubbed every trace of glitter off my skin before meeting him for dinner. It was exhausting, but it was also eye-opening. The more I leaned into the Ellie persona with him, the more critical he became. He started showing me Instagram profiles of fitness influencers and models, saying things like, "If you just hit the gym a bit more, you could have a silhouette like this." I was literally doing 3 hours of Pageant prep cardio and strength training every morning before he even woke up, but because I wore baggy clothes, he assumed I was letting myself go. It was the ultimate irony. I was in the best shape of my life, training for a national-level competition, while he was lecturing me about my lack of discipline. A week before the pageant, the department announced that they were sponsoring a Youth in Tech booth at the very same convention center where the pageant was taking place. Marcus was the lead for the booth, and he insisted I come and work the morning shift with him. He told me, "It'll be good for you to get out of the lab, Ellie. Try to wear something professional. Not that old sweater, okay?" I felt a knot in my stomach. The pageant rehearsals were in the afternoon, and the preliminary round started that evening. I realized that if I wasn't careful, my two worlds were going to collide in the most spectacular way possible. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to hide anymore. If he couldn't see the value in me as I was, then he deserved to see exactly what he'd been missing, and what he didn't earn. On the day of the prelims, I worked the booth in my usual Ellie attire. Marcus spent the whole morning correcting my posture, and telling me to smile more for the investors. He actually said to me, "See, if you just put in this much effort every day, people would take you more seriously." I just looked at him and smiled, knowing that in 4 hours, I would be transformed into a person he wouldn't even have the courage to speak to. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I was tired of being criticized, tired of being told I wasn't enough of a woman or enough of a beauty, all while holding a secret that would prove him wrong 10 times over. I was about to step onto that stage and reveal everything, potentially ending my relationship, and changing how everyone at school saw me forever. Before I tell you what happened when the lights went down and the music started, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have kept the secret to keep the peace? Or would you have used the biggest stage possible to show everyone who you really are? The afternoon shift ended, and I told Marcus I had a headache and needed to go home. He barely looked up from his laptop, just saying, "Fine, but make sure you're ready for the mixer tomorrow. Try to look nice." I drove straight to the backstage entrance of the theater. The transformation began. The heavy glasses came off, and my contacts went in. My hair, which had been crammed into a bun, was blown out into voluminous, cascading waves. The makeup artist worked her magic, contouring my face and highlighting the features I'd been hiding under layers of modesty for years. When I put on my opening number outfit, a shimmering gold cocktail dress, I didn't see Ellie the lab rat anymore. I saw Elara, the competitor. As I stood in the wings, I could see the audience filling up. And right there, in the third row, was the university's engineering faculty. Apparently, they had all been given VIP tickets by a donor. Marcus was there too, sitting between his frat brothers, looking bored and scrolling through his phone. He had no idea that the plain girl he'd sent home 2 hours ago was standing 20 feet away from him. The music swelled, and the curtains rose. When I walked out for the introduction, the lights were so bright I could barely see, but I focused on that third row. I saw Marcus's head snap up. I saw his eyes widen as I walked to the front of the stage with a confidence I never showed him. when I grabbed the microphone and announced, Elara Vance, representing the university's College of Engineering. The silence from his section was deafening. I could see him leaning forward, squinting, trying to reconcile the goddess in gold with the girl who cleaned his circuit boards. I didn't give him a second glance. I crushed the talent portion. A high-tech violin performance with synchronized LED side programmed myself. I sailed through the evening gown walk, wearing a deep emerald silk dress that made me look like I belonged on a red carpet in Milan. By the time the final question came around, I was in the top 3. The question was, how do you balance the expectations of society with your true self? I looked directly at Marcus and said, for a long time, I let people define me by what they thought I lacked. I let them tell me I was too smart to be beautiful, or too plain to be noticed. But I realized that the only person whose vision matters is my own. You don't have to choose between a lab coat and a crown. You can wear both, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for either. The crowd erupted. I won. When they placed that crown on my head and the sash across my shoulder, the cameras were flashing, and the applause was like thunder. After the ceremony, there was a press gauntlet. I saw Marcus trying to push his way through the crowd toward the stage. He looked frantic, his face a mix of shock, embarrassment, and a sudden, disgusting surge of pride. When he finally got to me, he reached out to grab my arm, saying, Ellie. Oh my God, Ellie, why didn't you tell me? You look incredible. This is insane. Everyone is talking about us. I pulled my arm back and looked him dead in the eye. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt finished. I told him, my name is Elara. And the reason I didn't tell you is because I wanted to see if you could love a woman for more than just her potential, to be pretty for your friends. You spent our entire relationship trying to change me into this version of myself. But now that I'm here, I realize you don't deserve her. You didn't like the girl in the hoodie, so you don't get the girl in the crown. His face turned bright red as his friends watched the whole thing. I walked away, surrounded by my real friends from the lab who had shown up and were cheering like crazy. They had known all along because they actually listened to me when I talked about my life. The next morning, the campus newspaper had my photo on the front page. The headline read, "The Genius Behind the Crown." It turns out several of my professors were actually thrilled. One of them, a woman who had been a pioneer in the field, came up to me and told me she'd been a competitive ballroom dancer during her PhD. She said, "We hide these parts of ourselves because we're afraid people won't take our minds seriously. But Elara, you just proved that we can be multifaceted." Meanwhile, Marcus was dealing with a different kind of fame. His frat brothers started mocking him for his fixer-upper comments, realizing how delusional he'd been. He tried to send me flowers, a massive bouquet of 36 roses with a note saying, "I'm sorry I didn't see you. Let's start over as Elara and Marcus." I threw the roses in the department's industrial compost bin and sent him a photo of it. I wasn't being petty. I was being clear. The girl who accepted his criticism was gone. The aftermath wasn't just about the breakup, though. It was about the shift in how the entire engineering department functioned. Suddenly, other girls started feeling comfortable expressing themselves. A girl in my thermodynamics class started wearing the high-fashion boots she'd been hiding in her locker. Another girl admitted she was a semi-professional makeup artist on the side. We broke the mold. As for me, the scholarship money meant I didn't have to work 3 jobs anymore. I could focus entirely on my research. I ended up getting an internship at a major aerospace firm. And guess what? They loved my pageant background. They said it showed exceptional public speaking skills and the ability to perform under high-pressure environments. In the end, Marcus was just a small obstacle on a much larger runway. I learned that the most beautiful thing about a person isn't their face or their clothes. It's the confidence to be exactly who they are without asking for permission. I used the prize money to fund my research, and I finished my degree with honors. I learned that you should never dim your light just to see who stays in the dark with you. I realized that the right people will see your beauty whether you're covered in grease in a machine shop or standing under a spotlight in a gown. If someone wants to change you, they don't love you. They love the idea of who they think you should be. Like this video if you were on my side and think Marcus got exactly what he deserved for being so shallow. Subscribe for more stories about people finally standing up for themselves and taking back their power. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Have you ever had to hide a part of yourself just to fit in? I'll see you all in the next story.